Good morning, everyone. This is Anne Marie. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about remembering what to do with these future setups. Okay, and so this is video. I'm going to put a link here so that you can refer to it if you're new or newer, so that you understand how we are working from these formations. So first of all, when we look at long pressure event, I look at the weekly 5 simple moving average, and if it's slightly moving up, slightly moving down, in general, I'm going to have it sitting in a particular sloping event, whether it's neutral to bullish, neutral to bearish, and so on and so forth. Right now, this is actually slipping from neutral bullish to neutral bearish, and so that formation we're going to slip over later, but right now this is how we're looking at the charts from this perspective. This is the initial breakout entry. All breakout formations should come at a retest of support. That support zone gives us an essential stop action that's about 6 points wide. Let's say you come into the market and this is the number that you're seeing, right? This one in the middle of the trajectory to the north. Your thought should be, okay, if I enter somewhere around here, the general stop action is going to be 6 points wide. So I'm going to be able to squeeze that formation. And this, because this is weekly in terms of the motion, this is a weekly path, it tells us that eventually through the week we should see 43.51. But this is weekly trending formation. Everything is weekly motion. So it doesn't mean that if you buy it today intraday, it's necessarily going to get to 43.51, but it certainly could. And so your thought should be, if I get in here, my stop is 6 points wide. I don't want to break my stop, and I want to take profit where my chart is pushing into resistance. This morning, it's pushing a little bit into, 43.44, 43.43. You take a little profit there. If it slides back to 43.39, you get to buy it again, and so on and so forth. Every time you look for an entry, you think about these 6-point stops. This higher edge of support says, hey, listen, let's say we get a savage fade. We'll walk right back up the formations in the same way, looking at baseline support with a 6-point stop, moving it forward. For the NQ, that's about almost 20 points wide, right? It's much wider. It's 15 points or so. And so what you want to look for is the same kind of behavior. If you are looking at a chart and you go, wow, she's got a 15-point stop on it, and you go, that's really big, then try to wait for it to get closer to that area before you actually engage. This is a very, very important space for you to look at. We wait for higher support edges to confirm themselves. That means old resistance becomes support. Or if we're looking for shorts, we're looking for resistance edges that stay resistance and become lower broken edges, right? We wait for a failed support to retest as resistance before we move into the range. The next thing is put sellers. This tells us where the formations are for the majority of price action in the trader edges. So this is where folks are selling puts. Majority of them have sold the majority of puts there. The majority of them have sold the majority of calls there. This morning, which is 7.6, we actually are printing well above the call sellers level. And so we're going to look for a dealer shift. If that's a little too complicated, don't worry about it. But what I wanted to remind you of was how to walk through this space. Every target has a stop zone associated with it. For the ES, we're using 6 points right now. Sometimes it's wider, sometimes it's tighter, but this is the relative range right now. So if you're trying to squeeze it in, wait for it to pull back to these key levels. There are key levels that you'll see. They'll be noisy, so they'll come into each other, and they'll push forward and they'll pull back. They'll push forward and they'll pull back. Right now, the area we're dancing around within that 6-point range is 43.39. You can look back in the chart if you see this later, and you can go, okay, she's talking about 7/6/2021. This is what was happening intraday, pre-market, and you'll see these motions hold up time after time. Just a brief review. Hopefully that's good for you, and we'll see you in the trading room.